So Blake Griffin is a free agent. He and the Pistons agreed to a buyout. My question is, how much money did Blake leave on the table? And I don't believe it would be a stretch contract for the Pistons because they already have too many guys that are bought out. Like, you can't go past a certain number. So would it just be a 1-year thing? I don't know. Hopefully the Pistons are not paying like $4 million a year for Blake for the next decade, because that would be terrible for them. But anyway, now we get to the obvious question of who is going to sign Blake, who would be cool for him to go to. Woj says Blake is expected to make a decision on his next team after conversations with prospective teams in the near future. I'm going to guess after the All-Star break, that sort of thing. It's not going to take long. There's a chance it happens later today, I don't know. But anyway, the first thing I will say before we start speculating on Blake teams, we have to remember Blake and his health is still a real question. So even if he signs somewhere and it's really exciting and we do the whole speculating how it's going to work, he could just get hurt. I mean, that's been the story, unfortunately, with Blake the past couple years, and we need to remember that one. Now, if I can think about Blake as a player, so in a perfect world, he can make open threes, roll to the basket, stand in the dunker spot, and attack switches in the post, and occasionally post up on power forwards, because, I mean, most power forwards now are small forwards of a few years ago, so Blake's going to have a size advantage there. But of course, Blake was not the same guy because of the health stuff. So there's a chance that wherever he ends up, he's going to be more of a spot shooter. I think he's definitely going to play backup center. I think he can do that, and that would maybe allow him to use his passing a little bit more, because if you have him at the top of the key, then there's no other big guy who might be around the paint to mess up the spacing. So I could picture Blake being used in some sort of BAM type actions with whoever signs him. Now, that said, for those to really be effective, teams have to respect Blake as a shooter or as a driver. So we'll have to see there. I think he can definitely play backup center, as I said. Can he play power forward with starters? I mean, on offense, I think it's still possible. I'm going to choose to believe Blake can still be good if more shots are created for him. So if he ends up on a team like the Lakers and he's got LeBron creating open looks for him and he's able to cut to the basket, especially off of AD post-ups, because you'd think that ruins the spacing, but it actually works out well, because then teams can't double AD, because then there's just a guy wide open under the basket. I think Blake can play well in that sort of a setting. Whether the Lakers should really, really want Blake Griffin, I don't know, but that's an idea. The other teams listed besides the Lakers are the Clippers, Nets, Heat, and Warriors. If we talk about the Nets, I mean, they're desperate for any sort of size, so it makes sense. I don't think Blake would transform them defensively, but again, if he is still going to be good on offense, and if he's going to have open looks created for him, and if he can still get up there for lobs from Harden and that sort of thing, then that could make them even more devastating on offense. I mean, because of right now, I mean, they've been using Bruce Brown as a roller to the rim, and if you can replace that with Blake still being good at that stuff, then that would be huge for them. Would also help on the boards. If we think about Miami, they're the next team. So the thing with the Heat is I think about Blake next to Bam, and if Blake can make threes, then that would be kind of awesome, because we've seen the impact of a guy you have to respect from outside next to Bam. And also, I would think that between Bam, Jimmy, and just Spoelstra knowing how to coach defense, that they could do a good job of overcoming any defensive problems Blake could have at this point. And it would be kind of wild to see Miami have two big guys who they can run the handoff plays with Duncan Robinson and that sort of thing. I mean, you could even see a thing where as Bam is running the handoff stuff with the shooters for Miami, you've got Blake cutting to the basket on some high-low action sort of thing. I think Spoelstra could get really creative. I mean, hell, I could picture Spoelstra trying some Bam-Blake pick and rolls. I mean, maybe teams would just switch that, but even so, it would just force them to be like, wait, what are they doing right now? I think Spo could do a lot with Blake. If we think about Blake on the Warriors, I mean, him setting screens for Steph Curry sounds pretty cool. If he can still get up there for lobs consistently, then you could see the Steph Draymond pick and roll lead to Blake alley-oops, because Draymond, I mean, how many times has he thrown a lob after the defense traps Steph on the screen? You could even see it the other way around, where Blake is setting screens for Steph, and then they trap Steph, so then Blake is in the middle of the floor open. I mean, Draymond's not going to catch the lob all the time, but, you know, it could be Blake lobbing it up to Wiseman. I haven't mentioned the Clippers yet. They're the last team listed. I mean, it would be a little awkward, of course. We'd have to see if Steve Ballmer and Blake could figure out any differences, if they have any real differences. We saw the clip of Blake just running off the court, ignoring Steve Ballmer. But anyway, that would give the Clippers a lot of options, because as of right now, they can go with one big guy, and even between that, they've got Ibaka, who's more of a stretch dude. They got Zubats, who likes to operate around the basket more. They can go two big guys with Ibaka and Zubats, and if you have Blake in there as well, then it just gives you more options. I don't even know what the best one would be, but it would simply just give them more versatility, and that's always good. And, I mean, Blake's not going to be what Ibaka is on defense, but Blake could be more threatening from outside than Ibaka, and he's definitely better off the dribble. I mean, Serge has made progress. Like, he used to have no playmaking at all, and now he's got a little bit. But Blake can still do way more off the bounce, and he can certainly do more than Zubats, so that could be cool. I've also seen the Blazers now mentioned as teams that could be considered. Funny enough, neither one of the LA teams are in this little tweet from Woj. So with the Blazers, similar to the Clippers, it would just give them more options. I mean, they already go with, like, they got Covington at the 4. Cantor has been kind of huge for them. You can try Blake and Cantor. You can try Covington and Blake. You could try Blake and Melo. There's a lot of different routes they could go there. And, I mean, if he could beat switches like that, then the Blazers could always have somebody out there who can dive to the rim off of Dame and CJ when CJ is eventually back, but also beat switches. So if teams are going to switch that action and not give you the Dame screen, I mean, it's tough then and there because Dame could just beat his guy one-on-one, but he could also throw it down to Blake or Cantor or whoever, so that would be nice. And Nurkic, when he eventually comes back, that'd be the other thing, the Blake-Nurkic front court. So, yeah, now it's just a question of where's he going. I mean, if Blake can still play, like if he can still make threes, roll to the basket, score in the post, at least on switches, and do something off the dribble as opposed to just being a stationary guy, then I think he could still help a team out a lot. Is there any chance of my Celtics getting in on this? They're not rumored. I don't think it's going to happen.